The following recording is a replay of an interview I did for the Autumn of Healing Summit in October 2024, which was host to over 100 experts in healing from around the world. This summit was organized by Matthias and Doris Badner, and I had the privilege of being involved in their 2023 summit as well, called the Network to Heal Summit. I highly recommend you subscribe to their newsletter at matthiasbadner.de so you can be notified of any future summits. Matthias and Doris' summits are world-renowned, and every year you'll find the world's forerunners in health and healing speaking at their events, such as Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. So be sure to subscribe at www.matthiasbadner.de to be notified of any future events. That's MATHIASBERNER.de. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Autumn of Healing Summit, where I have the huge privilege of introducing you to Reeta Pohjonen, who is a homeopath, a mother of four, a principal, a mystical mentor, 3 principles facilitator, an alchemist, astrologer, shiatsu therapist, birth activist, prenatal yoga teacher, a death doula, a divine water servant, a sailor, a whirling Sufi, a sister and auntie to 6, and a ceremonial woman, and my friend. And we got to meet in Bali a couple of weeks ago, and now it's just so amazing when I get to chat with you online now. Just all the hugs, all the chats, all the amazing time we had in Bali, and now we get to hang out again. So welcome, Reeta.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here, and I feel it as such a privilege every time we talk about healing and we can share our healing journeys together. And it's lovely to see you again.
I just had to get you on to the Autumn of Healing Summit because you have had such intense personal experience of transforming grief into something magical and beautiful, and being able to alchemize that grief into then being able to help other people as well. And so you are just a living example for me of how we can turn this grief around. And so I would love if you can open up your presentation and take our listeners from around the world on this journey.
It really is a journey that we are going to go on. It is at the same time my personal journey, as it is a journey that I walk with my clients. So my history is that I was 22 when I started to study homeopathy, and now I'm 51. So practically my whole adult life, I've been a homeopath. So I've been on my own healing journey, and I have followed numerous people on their healing journey. And I started from births because I was initiated as a birth activist with my first son, Amadeus, and attending births. And it's interesting today that we are recording this. After this, I'm going to go attend a birth again. So for me, this transitions are really a comfortable place to be in. And they are what I'm initiated in my life as well. And I could go backwards that I was brought up in Africa. I grew up in Africa. And of course, transitions like births and death are very everyday life. And they are viewed very different than here in the West. And that has maybe given me a container also to hold this big body of work, because not everybody likes to work with grief and dying. And this same son of mine, Amadeus, he also brought me into the life of a death doula. I had been doing that work already when he was alive, but when he died in 2019, I was fully initiated into understanding death. And I do want to share my journey, because now it's soon 5 years that he passed away, and I've done a huge journey. And many people are asking, how are you in the space that you are? In quite a healed space. It hasn't been easy, but I've had so much help, and I've also done the work, I could say, and I'm still on the journey. I would say that the journey has really been from grief to spirituality. And that has been my anamkara, that I have found a ceremonial life. And it has been a life of diving deep pretty much alone, but in a beautiful container of other ceremonial people. This has brought me also so much happiness or soothing to understand that the wound is the place where the light enters you. And I do feel that when my son passed away, that was my truest initiation to life. Because when somebody so close passes away, you either choose to go with them and die, or you choose life. Also, you might stay in a bardo state, which they say in Tibetan Buddhism that after you die, you are in a liminal space. But usually it's either way. And I quite immediately chose life. And I must say a big thank you to Declan Hammond, who exactly as my son Amadeus passed, said to me that death is the biggest initiation to life. So I got that from him, and we have done some ceremonies together as well, as he is a death doula or a really divine death worker. I have a candle lit over here. I had some incense put on my Dia de los Muertos altar. So in my home, I have an altar for everybody who's passed before me. So my grandparents are there, my son Amadeus is there, and I do my prayers every morning, either with incense or then with candles or so on. And I think this also brings the ancestors with us. They are like an everyday living energy around us.
I love that. I'm going to do that too. That's beautiful.
It is really beautiful. And it's like, yeah, there is a place for the ancestors. So that comes from the Mexican tradition. And the reason I've always loved Mexico, and I've got my Frida here with me. She's a very beautiful person that I've carried all my life. And because my son Amadeus, he died on the night of Dia de los Muertos, when the veil is thin. It was also the Day of the Dead in Finland. And now this year, we are going to have a big celebration for 5 years. So actually, we've turned that. So the Mexicans celebrate life and death at the same time. You can have a dinner with the dead.
Wow.
You know, it feels like they are still a part of your family because that's where you came from. You came from your ancestors, and life goes on through you, and you become an ancestor later on. So it's like a beautiful continuation.
So different to how we do it here in the West, hey? So different and so, yeah, amazing.
Yeah. For me, it was so important to make it sacred. And of course, it was also my way of dealing with grief. These are just a few subjects that are here behind the lecture. And the biggest one, of course, being the child loss as an initiation to life. And it can be also the grief of a loved one. It can be the grief of a grandfather. It can be the grief of whoever, or even the loss of a child that was a miscarriage. So I always say that they are all the same kind of losses because time is not linear. It is the loss of a very dear person that you need to look at your own dying at the same time, of course. I immediately went into different kind of ancient books because I knew that what was taught in the Christian tradition in Finland, it didn't soothe me. So Kalevala is an old Finnish mythology where I could look into and get some answers through the birds and through the Hag of the North. And of course, in the Norse mythology, you know, you have Valhalla, which is a place where the souls go, and you have all the gods. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is also something to look into. And I love the Celtic Anamkara, the soul friend, and the Tibetan Book of Death was also something that I read. And we did, one of the ceremonies we did for Amadeus was a Tibetan ceremony because his stepfather, my ex-husband, is a Tibetan monk. So, you know, he did a really beautiful ceremony for him. And Amadeus looked up to Tibetan Buddhism. Mm. So this is from Ireland. I like the idea of the soul friend, Anamkara. The highest call for a human being is to be an Anamkara for another. And that is like taking care of the other person in the good and in the bad times, in the difficult times, and sitting there for the dying. I love the fact that in Ireland, the body is taken into the home and everybody sings to the body. We don't have that tradition here, but I think it's so beautiful because it's also soothing for the people who are here. It's soothing for the family to be able to properly say goodbye to the loved one. And the body is seen as sacred, and that's really beautiful in my opinion.
Same in New Zealand as well. And I think some of the other Pacific Islands too, they do that as well.
Yeah. Because in the Finland is a very medical country. I couldn't get my son's body, and I had to ask permission when to see him. I could get his ashes, but I had to promise that I will take them to one place, which naturally I did not do. You can have yes, I have them on my Dia de los Muertos altar, so they are here with me at home. And of course, some of them are buried. He does have a grave, and some of them have traveled to the places where he was on his life over here. So they are in Zanzibar and they are in Lapland, and they've gone to many places.
Wow.
So I am a bird woman, and I loved birds before this transition. And actually, I think when we did proving of the black swan, I somehow started transitioning into the underworld, into the shamanistic. And that was in 2012 in our homeopathy school, Helsinki. And Swan, of course, done by Camilla and Jeremy Sher, is a fantastic remedy for grief, especially when you lose your loved one. So, especially losing a partner. And I have used it for so long, and that is so soothing. I went on a very, very strong raven journey after my son's death, traveled with the owl, and then maybe rose up with the eagle. So the eagle remedies for me were my grief remedies. This is from Kalevala, from our Finnish mythology. And that is the swan. That is the swan. I could say it's maybe the black swan, though in Finland we don't have black swans. But it is, the swan that takes the souls to the dead. So it is a very gracious way of looking at death in a way. If you look at swans and the stories of the swans that they mate for lifetime, and when they lose, they really grieve for a very long time. Actually, many big birds, very loyal to their partner, and they can really be used in this way. If you haven't watched the Black Swan movie, it tells everything. And of course, this has to do with the ballerinas, and this has to do with grief of losing a partner, with jealousy, and many kinds of things. And it really shows the graciousness of grief as well, and the beauty of it. I understood immediately when Amadeus left that I need to lean into beauty to help me with the difficult parts. So all the ceremonies around him were always done with beautiful flowers, intentionally taking beautiful feathers and dressing up. And it was like in a way, Dia de los Muertos, they are really laid out very beautifully. Beauty can be a very big remedy for grief. And it's maybe not beauty, it's more grace, to turn grief into grace. We all know about the ravens. A raven as an animal can be like a totem that helps you on the grieving journey. In homeopathy, we have the beautiful remedy Corvus Corax, which I actually had gotten a long time before when I was struggling. So the story of my son was that he was in psychosis from the age of 13 until maybe 18, on and off in the hospital. He went into drugs to help himself, and the story was very much of a raven story. He did get some raven as well. And me struggling as a mother, raven helped me also to come from the dark. Even at the moment now, some drugs trigger a lot of rage in me. It's a very Corvus thing when people sell their soul to drugs or the underworld. And that's not a shamanistic underworld. That's like a very dark place, in my opinion. So raven is also used for addictions and different things like that. So in 2022, I wanted to look into the raven remedy. And I had also been initiated in 2019 into Omega Codex, which is a ceremonial and a very Gnostic astrology, which was a part of my healing to understand why Amadeus left. I'll get into that a little bit later. And over there, the Corvus is the highest card. It's like the magician when you need divine intervention. And death can be a divine intervention to the good or the bad. Of course, for the soul leaving, mostly it was in their soul plan, I think. Accidents, I'm not sure about that. But I knew my son had to leave, especially when he left and he was ready to die. He was telling me earlier, he told me for a year already that he's going to leave. And the last year was to try to keep him over here, which is also, of course, for us to have him over here. But I know that he's in a so much better place. And the raven made me understand that as well. Wow. So the week that I did this trituration, I had a funeral on Monday of a really dear friend who actually passed by with his own hand. And then on a Saturday, I had a funeral of a really dear lady. And in the middle, we did the raven. And that week was the week of the dead, I would say. Mm. And in the middle, there was a burlesque show that I attended with people acting like ravens. There was a raven show without, them knowing, without me knowing. And I was like, chronicity of life. And, like we are so carried by the universe when it's needed. And if you don't use homeopathy, you can use raven feathers or just the energy of the raven when you want your life to change into the light. The raven is actually a very light being so dark and black, but it's the magician. And when we were in Bali, we talked a lot about dragons because that's the island of the dragons. So I would say that the raven trituration also brought dragons into my life. And after that, the raven changed into the dragon. Wow. And that's a mythology. But in my Omega Codex, the dragons do exist with the snakes. And they are in a certain, actually very near the Dia de los Muertos time after Scorpio and between Scorpio and Sagittarius. There is a sign of serpents. So these are just things. Some might say that this is a lot of woo-woo that I'm talking about. But this is how I dealt with my grief. And many spiritual people do look into symbols and energy. This is all energy. The Bubis Scandinavicus was a remedy that I worked with because it also is the sign of Ophiuchus next to the dragons and the snakes on my astro chart. And I always knew that the owl is a big teacher. And I knew that I have to reach out to the owl as well. And I went to Tanzania for the first time after I had lived there as a child. And I brought this owl feather with me. And then I didn't know that we're going to do a trituration over there. But Camilla Scher asked me, would we do a trituration? And I said, sure. And I said, I have just the perfect remedy with me that I'm working on. That is the owl. And what the owl taught me was that the veil between this world and the other world is very thin. And actually, the people that have passed before us are just next to us. So in a way, I'm sitting at a round table. I could invite my son or my past grandfather or grandmother to sit with me and have dinner with me, especially on Dia de los Muertos. Of course, a part of them are in eternity. And I always think, okay, is it very selfish of me or egoistic of me to think that they're still here or a part of them is here? Maybe it is the memory, but it's like a scarf around you of benevolent spirits and guardians that when I go into ceremony, I call them, and magic does happen.
Yeah, magic definitely happens when you go in ceremony. I think myself and the 65 other people in Bali who were in the ceremony that you and Janie held, every single person has been transformed. And when you spoke in Bali about this owl, I just broke down because my mum passed away a few months ago. And just that kind of, I felt like you gave me permission to know that it's okay that she is there and I can call on her. And so that was such a gift, absolute gift that you gave me, such a gift. And it's so lovely to hear this remedy again. And it's just lovely. I love that you made a remedy of the owl. She absolutely loved owls. She was a bird lady as well, absolute bird lady, but particularly loved owls. So it's very cool.
And that is so touching, to see that it touches other people and that it heals other people. Because really the dream in the owl that made me understand was that I dreamt that I was in a library and there was a door and I was told, don't open the door because that's the other side. And of course I opened the door and went to the other side and the colors were just a little dimmer. That's it. And I could come back and forth. And this weekend, I was lecturing birth trauma and things at my school, and we talked about an apple, which is so interesting, because then I read about the apples and the symbols of apples. And apple in some countries is seen as the fruit of the dead, that with the apple you can do the same. You can travel between lives. And it immediately brought me into a dream. My youngest daughter, who is now 22, she's very clairvoyant, and she often dreams about her big brother Amadeus, and they were really close. And she saw a dream that she could go to the other side, like, the Coco movie, in Dia de los Muertos. And they were hanging around and everything was cool, and she was having a good time with her big brother. And then the police came. They were the police of the other side, and they said, at dawn, you have to give something, and if you don't have anything to give, you cannot go back to the other side. And she started to panic that she cannot go. And Amadeus pulled a half apple from his pocket and said, here's the apple. Sana gave the apple and she could come back to us. Imagine. I am like, whoa.
Goosebumps.
Mythology is real when you see dreams like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So most probably eating an apple.
So it shouldn't be an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Apple a day keeps the ghosts away.
Our ancestors in line or something. I don't know. But this was like a beautiful, dream.
Mm.
So then the eagle is most probably the bird that carries the highest consciousness in a way. It's very much about divine presence. It is also the star sign of Agila in Omega Codex. It is present over there. And there are many different eagles. So Halietus leucocephalus definitely is one of the biggest known homeopathic remedy, which always is between two worlds, between the dream world and this world. And I was immediately prescribed it. My homeopath gave it to me when Amadeus died, because I just wanted to be in the dream world. Of course, in the dream world, I was in the world with him, and I didn't really want to come into this day. And then I got this Himalayan vulture. And in the Tibetan culture, there is a really strong symbology, like the dead people are taken to the mountains to be eaten by the Himalayan vultures. That brought me, because I was so angry at the fact of how everything went and what could I have still done. And I was angry at the hospitals, and I was angry at medications, and I was angry at all the soul loss that happened. And I was angry that we ran out of time, because actually just a few days before he died, I felt that he was cured. And I felt that, okay, now we start our life together. But actually that was the signs that his soul was ready to go. And then we did the Halietus albicella, because I wanted to do a Finnish remedy, because I felt that there's more, and I wanted to do it out of a free feather. Because, for example, the Halietus leucocephalus, the American bald eagle, it is done out of blood of a captured eagle, and I wanted the free one. And we really went into divine presence and acceptance and the masculine, and that was like January 2023. So it took me away from the Corvus, and it took a few other people from the Corvus into the light, into the bird perspective, that you see that, okay, the souls do go forward, and like life begins again, and a new birth comes, and into the eternal bird wisdom of not being so much in the human flesh. And some people can say that maybe that's a little bit of dissociation. Homeopathically, we don't really think so, because we are always in the right place at the right time. And if we are present in the moment that we are, that's health. And whichever way helps with you with such big transitions, I think it is fine. Especially traveling with eagles is always good. This is a vulture. Look at them.
Wow.
They love the dead. They are always eating corpses. So they must have a lot of wisdom of the bones and so on. And here, the Tibetan Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place within 49 days after death. When my son left, I immediately wanted to know how fast can he come back. That was my first. And I went into the Tibetan book. I asked the Tibetan monks. I went really into the Tibetan, because I felt that they really understand incarnation. And we did the ceremony for him before the 49 days were over. So he died on the 3rd of November, and on the 12th of December, 12/12, we did, we just wanted to support in every way for his soul to be able to be free, because then they talk about this space in between, this liminal space where souls might sometimes stay. And one of the reasons maybe is that we keep them here. But we wanted him to be able to be free like the soul can be and to continue forward. I did see quite a few clairvoyants, especially one lady who was really good. And I had talks about which kind of funeral he wants and things. And so he was really a part of his passing away. He never told me earlier what he wants for his, but I wanted to know about music, and I wanted to know about many things that could help him, his soul, go forward.
Did I tell you my mum's date of birth was the 12th of the 12th?
You really?
Yeah. And her
What
brother was 6'6", and I'm 4'4". So there's this double digit thing going on, but yeah.
Numbers can be, they carry so much symbols, and especially the fact that you have the doubles.
Interesting, hey?
Really powerful. And I'm sure looking at astrology or looking at numerology, you find deeper meanings, because I don't think these things happen by accident. I think the red thread of our soul, it has a certain length, and maybe it has been determined before. So these are quite typical, the 5 stages of dying. Of course, first you are like, no, I want to wake up from this nightmare. This is not true. This is very typical. I want to do anything. People go into drugs, any kinds of things, just not to feel and to numb themselves. And then there may be anger. Why did you leave us? Why did this go like this? And then you start maybe bargaining with death, that what if I do this? If I pray enough, will you come back? And all kinds of things. It can go into depression, which can last for a very long time. Many people just can't get out of that depression. And then at some point you go into acceptance. And I feel that I've gone through all the stages, and at the moment between acceptance and sometimes anger. And anger is just how things went. I would have wanted him to have a different life, though knowing he had chosen that life, I believe. And I was just there anyways to support him. And he loved homeopathy, and he lived his whole life with homeopathy. So that is fine, like that. And days are different. Sometimes you go back into grief. Like yesterday, I read a book. Why I actually did want to come on today. I felt that this is so important to talk about this. If this helps one person, it's just done its work. Of my good friend who left by his own hand because he had so much pain. And the wife wrote a book about him. And I actually read it in one go yesterday. And I felt my grief coming, and I felt the depression coming, and I felt the shock coming. And, in homeopathy, we have so many different remedies for shock and grief that if you don't see a homeopath, and if you have really a deep grief, go in to see a homeopath, especially who works with death and is not afraid of it. My remedy has always been Maria Magdalena. And that's what I have been taking this morning. And interestingly, in Bali, we did the lotus, which is like a water remedy also. And it definitely is a remedy of births and grief and so much more that we want to uncover still. Our lotus family. This is something that I did every day, and I still do. If I feel my stomach cramping, if I feel something touching me really deeply, ho'oponopono. I never know how to say it, but it is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And this is the remedy I give. I haven't done a remedy. We should do a ho'oponopono remedy, actually, and maybe somebody has. Yes. But just sentence, I always tell my clients, just say it. It's okay to be angry at yourself. It's okay to feel you really didn't do right. Everything is okay. Just say the ho'oponopono and you'll feel fine after that. That would be a really nice remedy, wouldn't it?
Great. And have you should freeze the crystal of it now that you've got your crystal, your Petri dishes.
Yes.
I want to see a photo of it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, wow.
I wonder if Veda's done it yet, but yeah, you should do one anyway.
Yeah. That's true. Ho'oponopono. She must have done it. And this is like a Hawaiian tradition. I think it's many of the islands might have it, but this is the Hawaiian way of healing. It's their anankara, and it's really soothing. I usually put my left hand to my heart and my right hand to my womb. And if I feel like a morning is like, oh, this is quite a hard or morning, I just do a few rounds and then I'm back. It just really like my backbone. Thank you to the Hawaiian elders for this.
Beautiful.
Maria Magdalena, before my son died, I went on a journey with Maria Magdalena, making a remedy out of it, a conceptual remedy of Maria Magdalena. And after he died, I did another remedy from the water of the well in south of France of Maria Magdalena. And ever since, I've used it as a remedy for childbirth, for losing a child, for any situation where usually a woman feels that she's outcast and she's being cursed from the outside, the witch womb, whatever. Maria comes as such a soothing mother. She's like the big mother that just puts her hands around you and she just supports you along the way.
Beautiful. I took that remedy a couple of days ago for the first time ever. So Janie gave me one when we were in Bali, and yeah, it's beautiful. Very interestingly, the second I took it, my mouth went so dry. It's
Wow.
very weird. And I've been too busy to really tune into what it's actually done for me. Because I don't feel I took it consciously enough. I was just about to leave and I thought, oh, I'll just take a dose. But my first instant sensation was like, wow, my mouth is so dry. What's going on? And so I need to just tune in a little bit more and yeah, see what comes up, or maybe just take a few more doses. I think it was a 7C she gave me actually, because at the bottom of the bottle it said 7C. Yeah.
It's the water remedy done into a 7C. So, it can be taken daily. Just sit with it. And when you want to do a ceremony, when you want to talk to your mother, or when you want to just do your drums, be with the donkeys, whatever it feels, you
It's
can see
exactly what I was thinking before. As I was literally, as you're talking and we're talking about the owl, I'm like, okay, I'll just have to wait for all of them to go. And then I'm going to do my hand pan and my drum and sit under my special tree here without the donkeys, because otherwise I'll be worried they come and chew me, and take the remedy and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can give the remedy to the tree. And I often say that I spray this remedy as well in my home, or it really it's a protector. She definitely is a protector. And coming back to homeopathy, I feel like Marie Melanie Hahnemann has a lot of the energy of Mary Magdalene, bringing it. I think this came very strongly in Bali as well. Being the rebellious woman who lives the way she wants. That's the Mary's. Nelson Mandela has really beautifully said, I do not have words to express the sorrow or the loss I felt. It left a hole in my heart that can never be filled after the death of his son. Definitely, it does leave a hole. It can be filled with flowers, I think, but it is there. It will be there. What happened with my grief story? These are two songs. Actually, I didn't know he was dead. I was in a bathtub and I was studying therapeutic dancing, and we were dealing with metal element, which is all about letting go and grief. I was in my bathtub in the morning before going to my lecture, and I sang maybe 100 times, Quédate aquí. Quédate aquí means in Spanish, stay with me here. And I was like, this is really strange. I love the song, but why do I sing it so many times? I found out the next day only that he was dead, and there were many reasons. Like in his life, he lived the life of a corvus or a raven, that when the police go somewhere, people are not there and the message doesn't come through. And actually, I needed to dance the sorrow away before I heard the news. And that, I was in a much better place. And a friend of mine has made a song, Taivas sylissäni, which I started listening to every morning in the bathtub, which means it's a story about your son being on the other side, or your child being on the other side, because in Finnish, child doesn't have masculine or feminine. So those two songs were really very powerful. And then very much so, I went into ceremonial living. So this is a picture actually from south of France when we were doing a ceremony for Mary Magdalene, and there are the triturations. I think it's a C2 that we are doing over here, together with a beautiful group of ladies, of teachers from our school. And I started studying this Gnostic living astrology. So I was talking, this is the time that he died around here. And this is serpents, the dragons, this is the owl, and this is Scorpio. So actually all of this was activated when he died. And I immediately went into an astrologer and asked, why did he die? Tell me what's on his chart. And Pluto was passing his north node, which is his soul purpose. And Mars was there as well. So I just knew that he had fulfilled his life path and it was time for him to go. And I went into studying astrology and I went into ceremony and I did a chart like this for myself in my studies. And I did a ceremony for every single one of these that took me 2 years. I did a ceremony like 3 times a week, which meant I was with him 3 times a week. I went on his grave. I did ceremonies. I went everywhere I could by the waters, and I was all the time in ceremony. I was very much alone because that was the way for me. I had to go and do the work by myself because I didn't want to carry people around me with my grief. And most people couldn't take the amount of grief that I had. So when somebody is grieving, give them the space to grieve the way they want. They don't want advice from you. They want you to hold space.
Yeah.
Because always individual. And this is what soothed me. And when I had done the whole round, we feel that then you don't have a chart anymore in a way. And then I felt free to do ceremony or not to do ceremony. So I'm in the place that I sometimes do on a full moon or a new moon, but I don't do so much as then. That was my healing. And especially bringing in all the ancestors all the time. If I needed to pay my phone bill, I would ask the ancestors to help me or something with my school or whatever project I was on. I had my ancestors on me and I went into ceremony with them, with the land, with the waters, and so on. We can look on our chart at the Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. And usually it is like you need to go from the wounded healer into the Christ consciousness. That's the astrological story of the healing. And often you can look at it like, for example, if you have Chiron in the 2nd house, look at the opposite, the 8th house, what is over there. And of course, the 8th house is always to do with dying because it's the house of the Scorpio. So there's a lot. I have this package for my ladies, mostly men are also welcome, Divine Purpose and Passion, that I can walk the road with you of grief or of self-discovery, of birthing yourself or whatever. And one of the big things we work with is Chiron, definitely. And when you turn 50, that's your first Chiron return. So it starts about 48 to 52. And when he died, I think I was 46. Yeah, 5 years ago. So I had been just going into my first Chiron return, which means that you rebirth yourself again. And like menopause, for example, is a birthing of yourself again, the new spring. So since I'm a shiatsu therapist and I was dancing the 5 elements and I was dancing the grief when he died. And this is what it is about. It's about letting go. It's about the grief. It's about your lungs. It's about your large intestine, about completely just letting go of everything. And my question on that day that he was already dead was from me, if I'm not a principal, if I'm not a woman, if I'm not a homeopath, who am I? And the next morning, I didn't need those questions anymore because somehow he made me eternal with the news. So this is really for him. My son Amadeus Casimir, the Day of the Dead. One of his nicknames was Coco. Coco is the main star in the movie. It's a beautiful movie, though it's a Hollywood movie, but it's really beautiful. I've only visited Mexico once. It is on my due list to go there on Dia de los Muertos and to take his siblings as well. So this year we are really going to have the party with him. And already last year it was a party. We've done a party on the same day, every day, remembered him. This year we'll have a huge ceremony, not huge, but let's say maximum 50 people. And we are really going to, it's always helping everybody with grief. And in the Celtic tradition, it's the new year as well. That's when life starts. After you've given up everything, life starts again. And this is really said that it's the only day when the living can go and visit the dead and come back. And the other days are different. So the dreams on the night of the 2nd to the 3rd or around that in November, pay attention because that's like really a portal for you to be on the other side. And carry an apple or have it next to your bed so you will come back if your journey is not over yet.
Well, it's going to be interesting when this goes live because the summit starts on the 25th of October. So and it goes for 10 days. So depending on when hopefully this comes out before then, before the 2nd of November, so people have time to implement this.
Exactly. Also lovely. So this is the big ceremony. We were about 50 people, and in the middle is the Tibetan bowl. The rice is poured over and over. It took 21 minutes or something. And everybody could bring something. This is the beginning. Everybody could bring something that they wanted to go into his grave. And after I would put them over there. So it was very soothing for many people because they could cry him and they could cry the loss of other people as well. Mother Amma was a remedy also that was done very much during this time. Of course, the unconditional love. And mostly why I wanted to bring her here is that she has an incense of rose and sandalwood that is just the most amazing. And it's still my soothing. If I feel grief, I just put it on and it helps me so much. And here is like a sum up of the things that I went. So sacred waters was one of the big things. So every morning I decided that mornings are for me and I'm going to spend them in the bathtub with salt water. And then, of course, the astrosophical ancestral healing that I did, a lot of bodily healing. I couldn't do them for 2 years. I was pretty much pacified. But after that, I went into getting the trauma out of my body. Homeopathy, of course, the best of the best that carried me all along. And doing these homeopathic triturations, these shamanistic triturations, were actually a part of my grieving process. And then I could take it to my clinic to help my clients. Hydrogen water, 2 years ago, I said that what it has done is it has made my grief into grace. There's a lot of space. Going back into the source, starting from being a birth activist into being a death activist or a death doula, and going back into being a birth activist and letting them transition when they need to do that. I wanted to mention Mia Hetani. She is one of my Omega sisters, and she is a really beautiful death doula. You can look into her work. And cautious of the time, I always want to thank my teachers. I want to thank Amadeus Casimir so much because he was my biggest initiator to life and my biggest teacher of the teachers. His consciousness was always so much bigger than mine. And now that he is my teacher over here, it is so beautiful to share all this wisdom. So much thanks go to him and all the homeopathy teachers and all the mystical teachers and the teachers before us and after us. The owl is the teacher. So they are present here and we can use it any way we like for our healing journey and for the healing journey of mankind and womankind.
Reeta, and thank you for being my teacher. I don't know how I got so lucky to have you in my life, but man, it's just been freaking awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I'm just so happy that you were able to share this with our listeners and take us on this journey. And thank you so much for sharing your contacts there as well. So make sure you visit reetapohjonen.com. And Reeta also runs the Homeopathy School Helsinki. I've done an interview with her on the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, and you'll also find us if you look for the Rebels, there's a couple of recordings. We're doing another one tomorrow with the Rebels. So myself and Reeta, Janie Lavelle, Danitza Appeline Matic, and Sarah Valentini. So we like to just have a little chat on the Homeopathy Hangout podcast. And then your courses as well. And you haven't got Source School on there. Do you want to mention something about the Source School?
Yes, it is one of the initiations of these remedies that it came to me that we need to start a sacred source school for all the sorceresses and for all the ceremonialists. So Sacred Source School, we have our first initiation on how to build your altar on the 11th of November, 11/11/2024. So you can follow us, and I will add it over here because I will send you. So Sacred Source School, you'll find us on Instagram at the moment.
The Sacred Source School. I'll go look you up because I definitely want to do that, because that's one thing after Bali and the unbelievable ceremony that you and Janie did for us that I realized I need more of that in my life. And Amy, my clinic manager, said the same. In fact, everybody I was talking to were like, yep, we need more ceremony in our life. We need that intention. And my kids actually go to a Steiner school and they do quite a lot of like ceremonial type things there. It's actually really beautiful. And whenever I go to a birthday celebration or their spring celebrations, I always think I really need more of this in my life. Just that intentionality that's behind it. I feel so beautiful.
And you become so present. You become present, first of all, in your timeline with your ancestors, and you're so present with the land. And it also brings you into a quiet space where you hear so much more. It's like bringing you back into the source. And also in homeopathy, we talk about the paragraph 9, the reason why you're here. I think ceremony grounds you into being here in your fullest potential.
Actually, I have a personal question. I was just thinking if I should ask you after or now, but I'll ask it for you now because I think our listeners will benefit from this as well. They might be thinking about this too. But when we create this altar with the candle for our ancestors, which I really like the idea of that as a way of acknowledging and transforming that grief, but also inviting the ancestors into your daily lives, would you only have the ancestors on there that you particularly resonate with? There's a couple in my line which I'm like, I don't know if I really want to invite their energy into my daily life. And I'm assuming now that they're on the other side, they're actually beautiful light beings that only have the best intentions. But would you light a candle for them, or would you only light the ones that you feel you actually want to call into your daily life?
So on my altar, I have the pictures of the people actually who I feel that I want them to be in my living room. And when I light a candle, I can mention all my ancestors. But the pictures that I have I have a few people, and it's really important that you don't put any living pictures like yourself with them on there. Just a picture of them who are already on the other side, because that's really like an altar for the dead. And you don't want to be a part of that because you are in the realm of the living. And then I do have I might have a painting from someone. I have a video there of my grandfather's funeral. And I might have owls. I have some feathers and symbols, and it lives all the time. So it does have beautiful flowers, and so you can be as creative with it. And if you go and look at Mexican Dia de los Muertos altars, they look like this painting over their back with everything on them. And then, like in Finland, where my son is buried, it's a Christian, whatever cemetery. There is a place that is really beautiful where you can go and light, like at Christmas and the Day of the Dead or whatever, you can light a candle. And then there's like, a fountain of candles over there. So there are these kind of sacred places where you can light many candles on your land, and you can make one represent everyone. And of course, in family constellation, which was a big part of Bali as well, it is really good to look at your family tree and the people that you have a challenge with. There is some energy.
Exactly.
That's where the light.
Well, see, and my goal is to do constellations and things so that I can look at those pictures and think of those people and not have the kind of triggering feelings that I do at the moment. I'm going to get there. It's very much at the forefront of my mind, but just in the meantime.
You can start with the ones that are easy.
Okay.
And when you go into ceremony on your sacred land, and maybe you take the Mary Magdalene, you can listen. And sometimes the ancestors start speaking to you, and you can have a conversation, and you can even ask, why is it so difficult for me to? And maybe it shifts the energy. Because really, when we have everybody on our back, even the ones that are not so, you didn't get along with so much, or you don't like the energy, most probably the energy on the other side is just completely light and neutral.
I have no doubt that it is. I'm sure it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, Reeta. The only reason I'm not completely devastated that we have to finish recording is because we're recording again tomorrow night. So I'll get to hang out with you then, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing this with all of us. I really appreciate it. And I love you so much.
I love you too. Bye.
Bye.